Hey, what's up everyone? So in this video we are going to work on a simple to-do app where we'll be able to create a task. So we'll be able to create, then we'll have a toast message here, task created, and by default the task will be added at the to-do section. So we'll see the count of the to-dos, and then we'll see it here. We'll be able to create multiple tasks, so I can add another one, create, then we'll see it here. We'll perform some simple checks. So if I try to create an empty task, then a task must have more than 3 characters. And then another cool feature that we will implement is the drag and drop feature. So if we have started a task, we can drag and drop it to the in progress tab here, and now we'll see it right here, and we'll see that the task is in progress. And if we have completed the task, we'll be able to drag and drop it to the closed tasks right here. Also, we will be using local storage for persistency, but will not be making any API calls, so there is no backend for this particular app. Okay, so if you want to add that as an extra feature, you can do it by yourself. Another cool thing is that you can be able to remove the task. So if I click on this one, we are able to remove that task. So yeah, this is what we'll be working on, and also we'll be using Tailwind CSS to style our app, and we'll be using Vite to create the application and also run it. So let's just get started. So the first thing that we will do is to obviously create a React app, and I'll be using Vite to create the app. So right here I can search for Vite, and also I'll be using Tailwind CSS. So I'll search Vite and Tailwind CSS here. So these will give me instructions on how I can create a new React app using Vite, and also will be having Tailwind CSS configured. So right here, to create the project, we need to run this command, npm create Vite iteratest, the name of the project, and then the template for our React app. So I'll just copy that, and I'll jump into my VS Code. I already have a folder opened right here, which is empty. So I'll just open a new terminal, and I'll go ahead and create the app here. So I'll paste the command, but where we have the name of the project, I will use a full stop or a period, just like that. And this will take the name of the folder right here as the name of the application. So I'll hit enter. So now we have a React app created. So we need to add Tailwind CSS. So we will install Tailwind CSS, post CSS, and auto prefixer. So I'll copy this command, and I'll come right here and paste it. So that will install those. And the next command that we will run is this one, npx Tailwind CSS init, and then -p. And what this will do is that it will generate the Tailwind .config file and also post CSS config file. Okay, so I will copy this command, and after we have done installing, I'll run that command. So right here I'll paste this command, and these will generate the config files, and there we go. Now let's go to the next step. The next step is to configure the template paths. So I need to go to tailwind.config file, and I need to add this at the where we have module.export. I need to add the content. So I will just copy this, and I'll go to tailwind.config here, and I will replace this content with whatever I just copied, and this will add these paths, which are our template paths. And then the next part is to go to index.css file, and I'll add the Tailwind directives. So I'll just copy everything here by clicking this icon, and then I'll go to index.css. It will be available in our SLC folder, then index.css. I will remove everything that is here by using Ctrl A and then backspace, and I'll paste whatever I copied. The next step is to run the application and see if everything works. So right here, I'll save this file, and then I'll do some cleanup before running the application. So I'll go to app.jsx file, and then I will remove the CSS file here, the logo. I might use state in this particular file, so I'll let that remain, but I'll go ahead and remove everything that is inside this div. So let's see, up to this point I will remove, and I'll save this file. Then I'll go into main.jsx file. We removed okay, everything is fine here, sorry. So let's just run the app. So I'll use npm run dev here, and this will fire up our application using Vite. So if I visit this URL, I'll press Ctrl then click, and this will load our application here. So currently I think we will not see anything because we don't have any content, but we can add the content here. So we can say React. So if I happen to save, we should see React here, which is working well. Awesome. Now we have created our Tailwind CSS and React app. We can test if Tailwind is working by maybe adding a BG of black. So Tailwind CSS works with class names just like this. So if I save, you'll see we have this background. Awesome. So Tailwind is working. So if you need to have the Tailwind IntelliSense, so if I happen to start typing here text, I think I should have gotten a suggestion. Let's try again. So if I start typing text, you see this is Tailwind IntelliSense, and we can change the text color. So if I happen to save, you see the color changes. So for this Tailwind IntelliSense, you'll need to install the extension for that. So here you can search for Tailwind, and it will give you this in this extension here, Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. So install it and try it out. If it doesn't work, try to restart VS Code, close and open it. Okay, awesome. So let's start working on our application. So again, our app will be having some to-dos, and we need a way of creating those to-dos. So we'll start by adding a form for creating the to-dos, and we'll use this app here as our root and as the parent for other components, and we'll place all our tasks at the top level. So here I'll create a piece of state where we'll have all our tasks. So I'll have tasks and set tasks just like that. Then these will be an empty array. Now in here I'll be having a component to create to-dos. So let's go ahead and add a new folder at SLC called components, and I'll add a new file. I'll call it create task.jsx. This will be a stateless functional component here, create task, and right here we can have our div. Okay, now in app, let's include that component right here, create task, just like that. This create task will receive these two as props, so let's pass them. So we'll have tasks will be equal to tasks and set tasks will be equal to set tasks. Just like that and save. So we'll be able to receive these props at our create task component. We will destructure them from props. So here we'll receive tasks and also set tasks. Cool. Let me close some of those files. So we'll also be having another component for listing our tasks. So here we'll have list tasks .jsx, and we can copy this one and paste it here, and we'll call these list tasks. So list, make sure to make a change here and here. Okay, this component will also receive tasks and set tasks, so that's fine. Then we can call this list and this one create, so that we just see them on the screen here. So we hook our list tasks just at the bottom here. So list task should be tasks. So let's make a change here, S and S. Then here list tasks, just like that. We'll receive both of these props into this one as well. So let's pass them and save. So here we have create and also we have list. So the reason I included them initially is so that we can add some general styles to our app by centering everything. So first of all, I'll include the background for our app. I'll say BG will be slate and these will be 100. So background color for the entire of the application. So we can see this background here, but it's not covering the whole page. So we can change that by setting the width of the screen to be W screen and then the height of our app to be H screen. So this will occupy the entire page. So if I save, you can see now it's the entire page. I'll center this by using flexbox. So I'll say flex, the flex direction will be column. So if I happen to save that, okay, nothing changes, but I can now use items aligns of center. So I'll just say items center, and these will align them at the center here. Okay, so if I wanted to be at the dead center here, I will just include a justify of center as well. So if I happen to save, that will bring them at the dead center. So I don't want these, I want them to be somewhere at the top here. So I'll remove this one, and instead I can work with maybe padding and margin and so on. So I'll include padding to the top of about 3 will do, and that will bring them at the top still, but we have some spacing. To include space between them, we can just add a gap. So a gap of 16 will do, and there we go. So we have a gap between them. Here we'll have our form and button, here we'll have the list. Okay, so let's jump into create task now. So for this, instead of having a div, we'll actually be having a HTML form, and for this HTML form we'll be having two things. We'll be having an input field, and also we'll be having a button. So you can add a button. The button will simply say create, and for this input field, the input type will be text. So let's tell them. So we can say class name here. For the input field, we'll use a border of 2, and then we'll give it a color. So we'll say border again, then we'll give it a color which will be slate 100. will do. So if I happen to save that, nothing changes. Okay, let's give it a state of 400, and there we see it now. Awesome. So we'll also give it a bg, which will be okay, this is supposed to be a class. Bg will be straight 100, so it will be similar to this background. So if I happen to save, there we have it. We can make it to have a border radius, and we use the rounded class for that. So we'll say rounded to be md. So I happen to save. Now we have a nice border radius for that. Okay, we can add some other styles like margin to the right to create the spacing between the input and the button. So I can say mr for margin right, and this will be 4, and I can give it a height of 12. Let me first save that. So this is what we have. I'll give a width of 64, and finally I can give it a px. So this is padding along the x-axis, so padding left and right, and that will be just 1. So if I save now, this is big, and you'll see the cursor is not at the very end. So if I happen to set this as 0, you'll see the cursor for the input is at the very end. So that's why I placed it as 1, so that we can see it. And now right here we have a nice input. Let's style the button. So we'll use a class name here, and for the button, let's give it a nice background of cyan 500, and also we'll make it to have a border radius, so rounded md, and then let's give it padding along the x-axis of 4, and the height will be similar to our input, so height will be 12, and finally we'll change the text color to be white. So I'll go ahead and save, and there we have it. So we have a nice button as well, an input and a button. So they are not functional, we should make them functional. So we'll be pressing the input result in state. So let's create a state for a single task. So we'll do it here, and we'll say const task, and then set task. These will be equal to use state, and we will invoke that. Initially, these will be an object. We can include an ID for a single task. This is important because we will need an ID when moving the task between different sections while dragging and dropping them. So let's have an ID. Then we will be having a name for each task, which will be an empty string, and also we'll be having the status for each task, whether a task is in the to-do section, or it's in progress, or it's closed. So it can be closed or complete. So here you can add a retro comment, and we can say can also be in progress or closed. So this is what I'm working with. If you want more, you can add them, but this will be good enough. Okay, so we want, whenever we type something, we change the state here. So here what we will do, we will be having an onChange event. So onChange, an arrow function here which will receive the event and will be able to return something. So for the return, so we'll simply set the task to be an object, then we will spread our initial task. So we'll spread this task right here. Let's spread it, and we'll change the different variables. So right here we'll set the ID. For the ID, we need to use a library that will help us to generate the ID called UUID. So let's install that. So right here, UUID npm to see how we can install it, and this is how we install it. So I'll just install that one down here. So I'll open a new terminal since we already have another terminal right there, but it's running our application, so I don't want to stop the application. I'll install this right here. So this is your ID. It will help us to generate a random ID, and this is how we can make use of it. So we import it like this way, and we'll do that, and also we will call this to generate the ID. So this is what I'll call right here, ID, then I'll paste that. So now we are setting a random ID. Cool. Now another thing that we are supposed to change is the name. So here we will set the name to be e.target .value. So we can log this task to the console .log of task, and see if we get anything at the console when we type something. So I'll inspect here, and I'll go to console. So right now, task, we have an object. Let's type here, and let's scroll, and you'll see here now at the name we have these, whatever we typed here. So it's working awesome. Another thing that I like to do is to make this to be a controlled component, which is being controlled by our state, and we do that by adding a value prop. So I'll add a value prop, and I'll set this value to be task.name. So that will be the value for our input, but it's also linked to our state. So this is awesome because whenever I reset the state here, the input will also change. So we'll use that later to clear our input after submitting our task. Awesome. So we need to be able to add this task to our tasks right here, our state right here. And actually we can go ahead and log it to the console. So we can say console.log of tasks, then tasks. So I'll save. Now you'll see right now at the console here, so wait a minute, let me refresh, let me type something. Now if I submit, it refreshes the page, and also the tasks here are empty. We'll add an event here on submit event, and we'll call a function called handle submit. So we don't have this function. Let's go ahead and create it. So right here I'll just say const handle submit, and these can be an arrow function. So this function will have access to the event here, so we'll say event, and to prevent the page from refreshing, we usually say here if prevent default, and we call this method. This method is available on our event. So if I save and I submit, now the page doesn't refresh. Awesome. Now the next thing that I can do is to update our tasks right here by calling set tasks, just like that. So here I can pass an arrow function, and here we usually receive the previous state, and I'll call this previous state as tasks. Also you can just call it previous, no problem. Then here you can return some state. You're expected to return some state. So first of all, before I return some state, I want to make some changes to our current tasks. So I can create a new variable, and I'll call it list, and I'll set it to be equal to an array. And here we will spread our tasks. So these tasks right here, just like that. And at the end here, I will add our current task right here. So here I'll say task, and then we will be able to return this list. So I can be able to say return list, and this will update our tasks here. So okay, I need to use this previous state instead of these tasks. So right here I will say previous. So this previous is basically our current task, only that it's much better because it creates a consistency and we won't have issues when we use it this way. So I'll save, and if I happen to say new and create, so you'll see now at this list of our tasks we have something. We have an object here, and if we check, it's our new task. So whenever we refresh this, we will be losing this piece of state. So if I refresh, we will be losing it, but we can use the local storage for persistency. So right here, after creating this list, this is what we can do. We can save this to the local storage. So you'll say local storage, this object is already available in JavaScript by default, and we'll say set item. So this is expecting a key and value pair. So the key will be tasks, and the value here will be JSON dot stringify. So I'll convert our list here into a JSON string. So here I'll pass the list. Okay, so I'll save. Now to check the local storage, you can go to application by clicking this arrow, application, then you click on this here. So if I expand this, you'll see the local storage here. I already have tasks, but this is from the demo app which I showed you. So you see it's from the demo app, but if I happen to create a new one, let's say new, it will update this local storage. For you, you might not have anything, but if you happen to create, you'll see it. So if I create, you will see that this was updated to this new information. Awesome. Also now we want when we refresh the application, we are able to get the tasks at state. So right now we have it at state, but still when we refresh this, we don't see it. So we have it at local storage, but we don't see it at our state. So to make this work, we need to go to our app, and we can make use of the use effect hook here. So use effect, we call it dependency array, will be an empty array. But now right here, we can be able to get our items from local storage, and also we should pass those items. So right here, we'll say set tasks to update the state, then we will invoke it. Right here, we'll get item from the local storage, but also we should change them from JSON string to JavaScript object. So if you check the local storage, you'll see that okay, it's being stored in form of JSON string. If you check these, you'll see ID has quotes, this has quotes, but I think for when they are showing it here, it's being converted to an object because this is not being showed like here. So to do this, we need to use JSON.pass, then we will invoke it, then we will get our item from local storage. So I'll say local storage, then dot get item, then I'll invoke this and I'll specify the key, which is tasks. So I'll save, and now if I happen to refresh and check the state, so here you'll see we have the state. So if we create another, so we have 2 of them. If we refresh, we don't lose them because we are making use of the local storage. Awesome. Now another thing is that you'll see that we are able to add an empty task. So if I send, you'll see we are able to add an empty task. So we need to prevent this. So to do that, we will go to our create and we can perform some check right here. So after e.prevent default, we can check the length of the name for this task. So we'll say if our task dot name dot length is less than 3, let us immediately return so that we don't have an empty task. It's good to perform a simple check. So here at the return, we can return an alert, we can return anything, but I want us to have a nice pop-up. So for that, we'll be using a library called React Hot Toast. So you can search for it, reacthottoast.com. Also, there is another nice one called React Toastify. So you can choose which one you like most. So we also have this one. I think it's nice as well. I have used it before. React Toastify looks like this, and React Toast will look something like this. So you can choose any, both of them are good, but I think this is easier to use for some reason. So the first thing we need to do is to install this. So we can go to documentation, then we'll say npm install React Hot Toast. So I'll copy that and paste it here. And then as it installs, we need to import Toaster and include it at the top level of our application. So I will copy that and I'll go to app here, which is our top component, and I'll import these right here. I don't need to bring in Toast in this, so I'll remove the Toast. I need this Toaster though, and I just need to include it at the top level. So right here I can include some React fragments, and then I'll include this div in there, but I'll load our Toaster here just like that. So I'll save. It's already installed, so we can come here and make a toast. So for error, this is an error, so for error we can say toast, then dot error, then we'll enter our message in here, and we can say a task must have more than 3 characters. So a task must have more than 3 characters. So I'll save and let's see. So if I try to submit an empty task, we have an error. So we need to import this toast. So I'll import from hot toast like this. Let's refresh. Let's try to submit an empty task. We have an error. So reference toast is not defined at under submit. That's weird. Okay, so we need to import it like this, not from the destructured one, but from default like this. Okay, let's try to submit an empty one, and there we go. A task must have more than 3 characters. Awesome. So you can see the way it's overlapping our button here. We can come to up here and we can add some padding to the top. So here I'll just say padding to the top to be about 32. That will create some nice spacing at the top. Now when I do this, we have some enough space for the toast messages, which is cool. So if I use 2 characters, we still have that message, but if we have more than that, then we are able to create our task. Also, we should clear this input whenever we create one. So let's come back here. So after we create our task, right here we can set task back to the default. So I can just copy this one and since the value here is tied to our state, it will clear the input. Another thing, after we successfully add a task, we can toast dot success and we will say here task created, and then we can check for maximum length as well right here. So let's say we don't want our to do to be too long, so we can say if task dot length is more than 100 characters, let us return an error and we say a task must not be more than 100. Okay, so I'll save. Now let's test this implementation. So if I successfully create a task here, we get task created. That message also the input clears. So for this one, let us have a long text. So I'll copy everything here and let's paste here. So this is a very long task. If I create a task must not be more than 100. So you'll simply create short list like learn React, create a web app, and so on. Just a check here. Okay, cool. So this is good. We can now create a task. We are saving it to the local storage and we are able to clear input, show some nice toast message, and so on. Now the next part is to list them right here. So I'll close this create task and jump into list tasks. So right here, remember our tasks are in this particular array of state, and we need to be able to separate them into tasks that are in to do, those are that are in progress, and the tasks that are closed. So we need to do some filtering, and for each of those I'll create states for them. So right here we'll need to bring in our use state hook and we'll create the 3 states. So here I'll say use state and I'll invoke it initially empty array, then also we'll have const, then we'll be able to set our state here and we'll set it to be use state. I'll duplicate this 2 more times so that right here I can say to do's and set to do's. So these are for those tasks that are not complete. Then here I'll have tasks that are in progress, so I'll say in progress and set in progress, and then right here we'll have the closed tasks and we'll set closed down here in a use effect. So use effect, I'll be able to separate our tasks into these different parts. So whenever this component loads, we will call this use effect, and also whenever our tasks change, we'll call this use effect. So we'll just filter depending on the status of each task. So remember, we have this status to do, which can also be in progress or closed. So right here, I'll say const f for filtered, then I'll say to do's, then these I'll set it to be equal to tasks dot filter. Then in here we'll get a task at a time, and we'll be able to return those tasks whose task dot status will be equal to do. And here we'll get our filtered tasks, which will be our to-dos there. Then we need to do the same for in progress and closed. So right here I'll duplicate these 2 more times. So here we can have f, then in progress, and here we'll have f closed. So f is standing for filtered. You can use the complete word if you want. So here we'll check if a task is in progress, and here we'll check if a task is closed. Now once we have these new arrays, we can update our various states. So here is set. Here we'll be able to set to-dos to be f to-dos. Here we'll set in progress to be in progress, and here we'll set closed to be okay. This is supposed to be f in progress, then here is f closed. Awesome. So I'll save. Now right here I'm supposed to have 3 sections: to do, in progress, and closed. And I want to make use of a reusable component, and this will really help us to perform drag and drop at multiple targets. Okay, when we use a reusable component, okay, it will be much easier. So right here, what I'll do, I'll create a simple array. So I'll say const statuses. So we are grouping them depending on the status. I don't know if there is plural for this word, but I'll just set it anyway. Then here we'll have a to-do status, then we'll have an in progress status, and also this should be in string, so in progress again, and also we'll be having the closed tasks. So I'll be able to map through all of these, and I'll be able to show them in a component. So each of the component, I'll call it a section. A section will have the title, and then it will have a list of tasks under that title. So here, let's create a new component. So you can create this component on a different file, but I'll just create them at the bottom here. So here I can say sfc, and this will create a stateless functional component. I don't need to export it because I'm using it in the same file, and I'll call this component section. So this section, as I have told you, it will have 2 things. It will have the header, and also it will be having a list. Okay, so let me save. Now I will loop through these statuses and show this component. So here, instead of list, I'll just say I'll use these curly brackets, and I'll say statuses and then dot map, and I'll have a status at a time. So status. Also, I want to use index, so I'll use this bracket so that I can have status and index. Then I'll be able to return the section component which we have created down here. So I will return the section component. We need to call it, so I'll use this, and I'll close like this. We need to set a key, so key here will be index. Then we need to pass the status, and this status will be status. So the status will be to do, or in progress, or closed. Now down here at the header, we can load the status. So we can say h2, and then we'll say status. So I'll save. So this status, we need to bring it in through our props. So I'll destructure from props. And now look, we have to do then list, in progress list, closed list. So we want them to be arranged horizontally. So right here, before mapping at this div, we can include a class name, and we'll add flex. These will have a flex direction of row by default, and then we can also be able to add a gap here, and I'll add a gap of 16. Now look, we have a gap between them. Now I want this to be a single thing, so I'll say div, and this will close there. So now we have to do and list below it, in progress, and list below it, closed, and list below it. So now I need to pass our tasks right here, and to do's, in progress, closed, and also set tasks down to our section component, because we'll need these to do's to list them here, we'll need in progress to list them here, closed to do list them here, and we'll need our tasks whenever we drag and drop and want to change the status of each of them. So right here we need to pass a lot of props. We'll pass our tasks, and these will be tasks. Then we'll pass set tasks, and these will be set tasks. Also I'll pass our to-dos, and these will be to-dos, and also I'll pass in progress, and I'll set these to be in progress. So this is these states here, and finally I'll pass our closed to be closed. So if you are using a global state management like Redux or Context API, you don't have to do these props drilling, but in this case I'll just have to use it. So I'll save, and now in this part I'll need to pass the task. I think I can use Alt to highlight task. I'll highlight set task, I'll highlight to-dos, I'll highlight in progress, I'll highlight closed, and I'll copy them, and I'll be able to pass them here as props. So I'm destructuring them from props. Okay, this is messed up. I need to include commas for each of these. and save to out of format. I'm using prettier. There we go. So I'm bringing in all the props that we passed here down to our section. So now for the section, we'll be having a heading, and also we'll be having a div to list them, okay, to list the tasks. Let's work on this heading, and for the heading, I'll create it as a component, and each heading will be receiving the text, so whether it's to do, in progress, or closed, and also it will be receiving the tasks list for that part, so that we can show how many we have. That will be like the length, and also we will be adding a background to each of them. Okay, so here let's create a new component down here, and this component will be our heading. So we will call it header, and for each of the header we will receive different props. We will receive the text, the background for that header, and the length for the tasks that will be listed under it. So you can, let's call it count. Count makes more sense. Awesome. So here let's work on this header. This header, we can hook it up actually first. So instead of h2, let us have our header, then text. To begin with, we can just pass the text, and this text will be, for now, let us create it as a variable here, and we can say let text be equal to do, and we pass it here, and that is what we will display here. So we'll have text. So now, for now, all of them are to do. We'll be changing that later on, but let's add styles for these. So here we'll be having a class name. We will be adding a background color. So here we'll also be passing a bg, which I can also create a variable for it here. Let bg be equal to bg hyphen slate hyphen c. This is a Tailwind CSS class 500. So by default we should show this bg. Let's have count here, and by default let us have our to-dos dot length. We'll be changing some of these. We just want to have the initial one, then it will be much easier to change, okay, later. So now we are able to receive them here. So for this class name, we need to include the background color, and since we are leading this from this bg, which is like a variable in JS, we'll use backticks. Okay, that is the character just before one on your keyboard. Then I'll use $sign and the curly brackets. Also, I should wrap the entire of this section with these curly brackets, okay? So curly brackets, then backticks, then $sign, then other curly brackets. Now, like right here, I'll be able to say bg, and then after this, I can include some space. And if I happen to save, you'll see that bg is being applied. Awesome. This will be like the parent for text and count. So here we'll be having another div, and this div will be having our count. Okay, so if I save, you'll see count is coming down here. So we can fix these by using flexbox. So here I'll flex the item, and if I save now, they'll be side by side. Then we will have items aligned to the center, and then we will have height of 12, which is similar to these ones here, and for persistency it will make it look much better. And also we can include a padding to the left of 4. We need some classes here which will control both of the header and the list. So let's also add some class name here. Let me use backticks because later on we'll be working with JS in here as well, but for now we don't need to, but we'll preserve it for later. So here we'll have a width of 64, which will be similar, I think, to this input field, and that consistency will make it to look much better. So if I save now, we have the width there is 64. We'll make it rounded to be MD. We'll make everything to be uppercase, and text to be small. So to be small, also text to be white. If I save now, we have these nice styles like there. So let's tell this count, and that will make the bigger difference by separating everything. So first of all, we want to include the space between the two, so I can add a margin to the left of about 2, or alternatively I think you can include a gap of 2 right here. Both will work out. Then let's include a BG of white to this one, BG of white, and we will give it a width of 5 and a height of 5. And also let's change the color of the text to black. Okay, there we go. Now we need to center the 5 and also make the background look circular. So we'll add border radius of 100 by saying rounded to be full. So that will make a circle. Now let's center it by using flexbox. So I'll say flex, then items center, and justify center. Awesome. So it's at the center, we have space between it, and it's circular. Okay, cool. So far so good, I think, but now we need to include the colors for each. If we refresh here, I'm seeing some errors here. Okay, everything is fine. I created 2 variables, text and BG, and I'll be creating another one, and here we'll say let tasks to map. So these will be tasks that will be going through to be initially to be our to-dos. Okay, now we'll change this depending on the status. So down here we'll perform a check of our status. So if status is in progress, let us update our variables. So the text will be in progress, the BG will be BG, I'll use purple, 500. Then lastly we'll update our tasks to map to be in progress, this one, and I'll do the same for closed. So if status is closed, the text will be closed, then these will be green. So it can be closed or complete, or you can give it a name and any color you want. So this is just for learning. So here I'll say closed. So this closed is this one right here. Now down here, instead of todos.length, we will use this tasks to map. So tasks to map dot length, and that will change depending on the status. So it can either be to dos, in progress, or closed. Awesome. So I'll save, and now look, our header changes. So we have to do 5, in progress 0, closed 0. So that is awesome. Now we need to map our tasks down here and list them. So below the header, instead of list, we'll have another component. We'll perform a check first, dot length. So if the length is greater than 0, that is when we will go ahead and map. So we'll say end tasks to map dot map, and here we will receive a task at a time, and we'll be able to return a component. We'll create another component down here. Let me copy paste this one, and now this will be a single task. Okay, so instead of header will be task. Remember, these components you can include it on separate files, but in this case I'm just adding them down here. Now this component will receive some props, but right now we are not specifying anything. Also, we'll be having something here. Let's add a div which does nothing. So at the top, we'll be able now here to return the task component. If I save, that error should disappear, but we should have a unique key for each of these. So I'll say key. Remember, our task has an ID, so I can say task.id. We will pass all our tasks to this component. So I'll say all tasks and tasks. Another thing that we will pass is set tasks, because you'll need to update the state whenever we delete a task or whenever we remove a task. So set tasks. And one last thing that we are missing is the task itself. So task will be equal to the task itself. I'll save, and we are passing task, tasks, and set tasks. We will receive all these in this component. So we'll have task, we'll have tasks, we'll have set tasks. So down here we can add a paragraph tag, and we will say task dot name. If I save, now you'll see our tasks are being listed. Awesome. And if we create a new one and send, you can see it being added here. So it's being added. Awesome. We just need to style it. So let's add some styles. I'll say class name, and later on I'll also be making use of some JSX in here. So let's add using the backticks, and I'll add a position of relative, because we will also be having a button right here, which we'll use it to remove a task. Okay, so here we'll also be having a button, so we'll add these a class of relative, and this button will be having a class name of absolute. Then we'll be able to position it nicely. Let's add more styles here. Can add a padding of 4, margin to the top of 8, and we'll add a shadow so that now it looks nicer of MD. Then we'll make the corners to be rounded, and we'll add a cursor to grabbing. So whenever we hover over it, we will be grabbing it, and then we'll be able to drop it somewhere else. So grabbing, or maybe grab, I don't know. Let's save. Look, let's style this button, but we'll add an icon, and I can make use of the hero icons. So I'll go to heroicons.com. This is made by Tailwind CSS team, and I will look for remove. You can use this minus or this X. On the demo I used X. I think minus also looks cool, so you can use any. Anyway, right here, if I add it and come here, you'll see it here, but let's position it at the corner here. So here we will say bottom to be 1, then right to be 1. If I save, now it's right here. Awesome. Let's change the color. So I'll say text to be slate 400, which is pale. Cool. So we have that pattern. Now I want us, when we click the button, we'll actually be able to remove a task. So on this button, we will be having an on-click event. So on click, we will pass this function, and we will call a helper function or method here, and I'll call it handle remove. And right here we'll pass the task ID like that. So we'll create this function in here, still inside this component. So here, let's create it. I'll say console, okay, not console, const handle remove, handle remove. These will be equal to an arrow function, which is receiving an ID of the task that we want to remove, and I can log this ID to the console to see if this works. So console.log of ID. I'll save. Now if I click on this, we have an error, the spelling is wrong. Handle. I'll save now, and if I click on this, we get the ID of that task. If I click on another, we get a different ID. So that is working. Now we can use this ID to remove a task from the list by using filter. So right here we'll say const f tasks. So filtered tasks will be equal to our tasks which we are receiving here, then dot filter, and in here we will receive a task at a time, and we will return that task dot ID that will not be equal to the ID. So all tasks that are not equal to this ID will be returned to this f task. Therefore, the task with this ID will be excluded from the new array here. Then right here, we will simply call set tasks, and then we will call our f tasks here. And then after we successfully remove, we can toast right here. And let's see how it's imported. It's not supposed to be imported this way, so I'll go ahead and remove that and also remove here. So in our task component, we can toast, and we can make a custom toast actually. So here we can add task removed. Remember how we had the tick and X icon? We can include our own custom icon here. So I include an object, they can specify the icon to be, I think this is one of the beauty of these Toastify or Toast library. You can highly customize it. Now here you can include any icon you want, and I'll use this one which I had used earlier. So I'll save, and this should remove a task. I remove the ID here, and let's see. So I will refresh just to make sure I don't have any errors. Let's remove this one, task removed, and now we have 5. Now we are able to remove them just like that. Cool, awesome. So you see, we have completed the, okay, they are back. We didn't update the local storage, so we need to update the local storage. So after we remove, we update the local storage here. So we will say local storage, then dot set item to expect a key and value pair. So we'll say tasks, then we'll set the tasks to be JSON dot stringify, and we'll pass our f tasks. I save. Let's remove now. We refresh. We no longer see them. Awesome. So now we have completed the UI and the basic functionality of the application. We are able to add a task. We are able to list the task below the to do. We are able to remove it. So we are not able to drag and drop. So we should be able to implement that feature now. So now to implement drag and drop, we will use a library called React DnD. So right here you can search for React DnD, standing for drag and drop. You'll see its documentation here. Also we have npm here. So let's go to docs. The docs are quite intense, like they have a lot of information which you might see hard going through, but I'll make it easier for you. So right here you'll see the installation process. We install React DnD and also React DnD HTML backend. So you don't need to worry about this library. You can read more about how it works, but just copy all of this and install this library. So I'll go ahead down here at the terminal and install those two. Now the first thing that you need to do is to go to our app here, and we will wrap our component here with React DnD. But first of all, I'm seeing an issue here. This you can just include it as P for padding, then this padding top. Awesome. Some repetition there. So at app we'll be having a provider component. I don't know if I can see it from here, or we can go to tutorial, then you'll see the process of getting started. Okay, adding React DnD, it's here, down, way down. I think this tutorial is not beginner friendly, but all we need to do is to import this DnD provider and HTML5 backend. So I will copy that and I'll paste it here. We need to wrap our app with this DnD provider, and we'll include a prop called backend, and we'll pass this HTML backend. So I'll copy that provider, and right here, instead of React fragment, I can include the DnD, and make sure you close down here. So now we have React DnD added. I'll remove that. So we need to go to list tasks, and at list tasks we will be making use of some hooks. So React DnD have some hooks, like these use a drag hook, and we'll set a type. So this is the type of the item that we want to drag, and the place where we want to drop, we also specify the type. Okay, so we will do something like this. Actually, I can just copy this one, then I'll go back here, and we want to drag a task, this one. So it makes sense that we will use this on the task component. So I can hide some of this code and open them whenever I need them. So we have the task component here. So right here, I'll make use of the use drag hook of whatever I copied. So this use drag, I'll use control space to auto import it from React DnD. So I click on it and you'll see it here. Awesome. So here I'll set the type as task, so I can just remove this and use a string task. Then we have this corrector property here, which sets a function with monitor, and simply what we are doing here is we are making the React DnD state to be accessible in props, and we can check this and see if it gives us a value. So here I'll console.log this is dragging property, is dragging. Now we are also supposed to use this drag, and this will be value of our ref. So the item that you want to drag, you will include a ref, and you'll set this one to be equal to drag. Okay, now if I save that, it will auto format. So make sure you add this code and import use drag and add a ref. So now it's pretty simple. You'll see now is dragging here is false, but when I click on this and start dragging, you'll see now it's true, and you can see we are able to grab this stuff, this part. Awesome. Another thing is, if we omit this ref and save, we'll not be able to drag. Look, we are not able to drag it or to grab it. So you must include this ref, and the cool thing is that we can now make use of this is dragging property to add some more styles at this class here. What I'll do, I'll say this, and I'll say is dragging, and I'll use this question. We'll have some class name there. Then else, if you are not dragging, we'll have some other styles there. Opacity here will be 100. So I'll save. Now if I drag, you'll see right here it's changing the opacity of that task, and if I erase, it's back to 100. So that is how you can use this is dragging property. But this is all we need to do at that task. We are able to grab it and drag. So we should be able to drop that task somewhere, and we'll be dropping that task at a different section. So we will be making use of this section now. But I think we left one more thing at this task. We have another property here called item, and we can specify the ID of the item that we are dragging. So right here you can say ID, and we'll say task dot ID. So this will be helpful so that we know which task we should change the status for. Also, you can pass the entire task in this object if you want, or pass more properties. Only that right now we need only the ID. Actually, I'll go ahead and copy. Okay. And right here at the top level, I'll paste it. But now, instead of use drag, this will be use drop, and I can click on it to import it at the top here. Now here, instead of is dragging, we will be having is over. Whenever we are over a certain part, then here instead of drag, we will have drop. Here instead of type, we will say accept task. Here we'll have a drop property, and this drop property we can run a function which accepts our item. So here we'll have a function which will accept our item, and we can create another function to handle adding this item to a section. So we'll say add item to section. Then I invoke this, and all I'll do is to pass item dot ID, and then right here at the corrector we'll have monitor, but instead of is dragging we'll have is over. Now we need to create this function. So down here you can say const that function, and this function we will be receiving an ID, and we'll make use of that ID. We can log it to the console dot log, and we'll say dropped. So whenever we drop, we'll be able to have this ID. So I'll save. So this is the use drop, and this is what we have: accept, drop, and collect. And we also have this is over, and we have this drop. So whenever we drop, we'll have access to the item, and that item we specified it at the very bottom where we had our task here, and we passed the ID of the item that we were dragging, okay, as task, this one task.id, and we'll be having access to that ID whenever we are dropping, and we have this function which we can use to update our tasks. Awesome. So now the drop section, we can specify which is the drop section by including a ref here. So you can include at the end of or the beginning. The beginning makes more sense because it will be the first thing to read. So we make the ref here to be drop, and this drop now is this one right here. So let's test this and see if we can log the ID after we drop it. So let's come here. We have errors. Let's see. and they are coming over and over again. Monitor.isDragging is not a function. Okay, this is not supposed to be isDragging, but isOver. We forgot that. So I save. For section, it's isOver. So now we don't have any error. Awesome. So this task, let's try to drop it at in progress. Drop here. Look, we get the ID. We are able to run that function. If I drop it here, look, we have done it again. Another cool thing is that we have the status, so we can drop and specify which section that we are at. So if I drag and drop, you see we drop this but at in progress. If I drop this, we drop this but at closed. So that is why we needed to make this to be a reusable component, this section. I tried to separate them manually, but that didn't work out well. So now all we need to do is to make use of this in progress and this closed to change the status of this particular task ID. Also, we can show a nice hover at a section where we want to drop. So this is how we can make use of that, by making use of isOver here. Remember, we included some backticks here. So right here we can say isOver, then this will either be true or false depending on whether we are over or not. Then if we are over, we'll just change the bg to be slate 200, else we'll set it to be an empty string. So if I happen to save that and then go over this section, you'll see we have that nice background. Awesome. Now another thing that I can do is to make this to be rounded. So I can say rounded to be MD, and also I can include padding of 2 or over to look nicer when we hover over it. So look, the section where we want to drop is very clear, and if we drop, we can be able to see it. Now let's make the drop functionality work. So we'll do that in this function. So I can remove this console log and right here. So I'll just call our set tasks. Whatever I'll do is to just change the status of that task. And here we have access to our set tasks function to update our tasks. So I'll call it, and we'll have access to the previous tasks. So previous, then here we'll have a function. At the very bottom, it expects us to return some state. So before we return, we can make use of this previous. This is the list of our tasks. So let me show you. Console.log of previous, and we can actually say that this is previous. And right here, return previous. We must return this state. So I'll save, and if I let me refresh. If I drag and drop it into in progress, you'll see previous is a list of our tasks. So if we had multiple and we happen to drag and drop there, you'll see previous is the list of the task. But it works very well because the state is updated. So if you try to use task right here, which is still our state, you might experience some weird behavior. So that's why I'm using this one. Now right here, since this previous is an array of tasks, we can filter them. So I can say const. Actually, it's not to filter, but I'll modify a specific task and then I'll update the state. So I'll say m tasks M for modified tasks, you can use a complete name if you want, will be equal to our previous, and we use the map method, previous dot map, and we will receive a task at a time, and here we will be able to do something. So I'll perform a check if our task dot id is equal to the id that we receive right here. So we say id, we will modify that task, we will return a new object, so we will return here, and whatever we will return, we will spread our task, this task here, and we will change the status to our status. We saw that we had access to this status here, which is that section. So if this is not the case, we'll just return the task here without a change. So we'll just say return our task, and now this will form a new array of tasks with a modified task in it, and then all we will need to do is to return these modified tasks. So I'll say m tasks, just like that. Now these should drop it, so I'll save. Let's see, let's move this one, drop it here at in progress, and there we go, it's working like magic. Let's drag this one and drop it here, there we go. So our drag and drop is working, but it's not saving to the local storage. So if I refresh, all the tasks that were closed and in progress are back here. So we should fix that. So right here, after this, before our return, we can update our local storage. So I'll use the local storage, and we'll say set item, and here all we will do is to update our tasks to be JSON.stringify. We change our m tasks to a JSON string. So here I'll pass our m tasks. Now down here, after we change a state, we can pass, or we can notify the user by using a toast. You can say task status status changed. Then you can include a custom icon, so I can say icon, then I'll choose it from here, and I can use that or any other. So I'll save. So let's see, drag here, it's here. If we get this task status changed, if I refresh, it's still here. I can drag and drop here. We have this nice hover, awesome. Can remove, wait a minute, remove, okay, task removed, awesome. So basically we have completed our application. We have made use of drag and drop to drag our task. We have made use of React and Tailwind CSS to style. So here we can have several tasks run React. This is run. I hit enter, the task is created. If I try to create an empty task, a task must have more than 3 characters. I can add another one, run node, create a video. So you see, we have this nice to-do app where we want to, when we are working on a task, we can drag it to in progress section, and you can make these to be as complex as you want. You can add backend, saving to the API. You can add a timer for tracking the time for each task. You can add more description such that when you click on this task, you see more details and add more features. Here we can drag it to this section. You can try to make these sections to be dynamic, and there we have it. Awesome. We can remove tasks, we can add multiple at a section, you can remove some, you can drag to wherever you want with nice toast messages. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Please make sure you subscribe to support my channel, and I'll be really happy for that.